Oi, mister! You me dad?
Like, comment, and subscribe.
White Zombie is a 1932 horror film directed by Victor Halpern and starring Bela Lugosi, based on the 1929 novel The Magic Island by William Seabrook. This was the first film to bring zombies into the silver screen, predating Night of the Living Dead by 36 years. Not happy that Madeline, Madge Bellamy, the woman he loves, is marrying someone else, Haitian plantation owner Charles Beaumont, Robert Fraser, turns to a local witch doctor named Lingere, played by Bela Lugosi. To have things his way, Lingere uses his skills to turn the woman into a zombie, who is mistaken to be properly dead. After she is whisked away from the grave, her husband, Neil Parker, John Heron, learns the truth about her condition and sets out to rescue her. And, well, then things get kind of interesting. There's some double crosses, there's some triple crosses. There's some interesting mixtures of both racism of the era mixed with certain kind of progressive notions of exploited labor and such, using the zombies or the people who have been zombified as examples of that under the colonial rule. And long story short, I'm sure you're going to be aware of the fact this is a film from the 1930s, and it's also pre-Hays Code. So we get a really nice shot of the bride-to-be in her underwear prior to the actual wedding. Yes. And with that in mind, there's a wedding, but then bad things happen. I mean, let's face it, we've all had that moment where you're like, hey, finally, I'm about to get married and get laid, and she dies. Like things happen.
I've never had that moment, Dave.
Really? We got to get you out more often. John's had it happen twice this fucking week. I mean, and so the good guys win, the bad guys lose. There's a particularly kind of wonderfully poetic way that the two primary bad guys get taken out in this film. And I really, I'm sitting here thinking, if you want to see an example of a good horror film of its era, being aware if you want to see an example of a really good original for its time horror film, this is one well worth checking out. You just got to be aware going in that it's very much a product of its era.
Mm-hmm.
And how?
So I thought I had seen this before, but I actually saw a different movie with my friend Carrie at the Time Cinema in Milwaukee called I Walked with a Zombie, which also deals with zombies that are not flesh eaters. That was made in like 1943 or something like that. So the neat thing that I noticed in this movie was parallels to one of my favorite later movies, The Serpent and the Rainbow, Wes Craven's movie.
Yeah.
Because we have Haitian voodoo, zombification, and the use of a powder that causes the issue. And in White Zombie, we are also dealing with a exploitative upper class using that zombified power to exploit labor. In Serpent of the Rainbow, we have a politician who's using that powder to suppress his critics. It was based sort of on from Baby Doc from Haiti.
Yep.
And so the similarities between the two movies were kind of striking to me.
Yeah, I think that there's an element, especially when you're talking about what it is we view in the popular sense of Haitian culture. And that tends to be, a repeating theme because it tends to be one of the bigger ones in terms of what we see, because it's the most outside of our own experience, even though voodoo, as we think of it, is kind of a mixture of like
Christianity and
specifically Roman Catholicism with all of the saints, and then African religions and stuff along those lines. And it kind of becomes this interesting kind of like stew of ideas. And, the other oddly enough, one of the other films I can think of with this, in terms of its view or its moment of taking a look at voodoo as a practice, although again, it's a bit odd, is crap, I can picture it. Mickey Rourke.
Angel Heart.
Yes, Angel Heart.
Mhm.
Angel Heart has moments where they're sitting around talking because New Orleans is shot through with it,
Mhm.
with a lot of Acadian and Haitian culture being mixed in there. And there's a popularization of it, and I don't know enough about voodoo and it as an actual religion to be able to say how much any of this bears any resemblance to something that looks like
Mhm.
truth. But in a popular sense, this is one of those ones that a very early film that talked about the culture of Haiti. And then I'm going to take a guess and say it probably got a significant amount of it wrong. But
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, but what was interesting, and you kind of mentioned it in your plot synopsis, that it's a weird mix of like very, very racist stuff in there. But
Yeah.
then there's also like some progressive sort of messaging about clearly the guy who's enslaving the villagers and bringing them back from the dead, so to speak, using them as slave labor. He is the villain. So it's this weird mix of really outdated thinking and
Yeah. When you go,
oh, go ahead.
when you go into his lair and he's got all of these zombified people doing the routine day-to-day tasks, and he's basically offering them to Beaumont for sale as effective slaves.
Mhm.
And it immediately establishes a line very, very early on, because even Beaumont's shocked by it.
Yeah. Well,
And
no one should be shocked by anything he does because his first name is Murder.
generally, if your first name is Murder, I'm probably going to take a little bit more time than usual getting to know you before we hang out. Just saying. So
Yeah,
Dave,
that sounds like good advice.
yeah, I'm going to
if
hang out for a good weekend with Murder. What?
if you meet someone named Murder, yeah, the vetting process should be slightly longer than, let's say their name is, I don't know, maybe Tim.
Yeah, Tim.
My
Tim.
name's Murder, but you can call some, but there are those who call me Tim.
Tim. Yeah, exactly where I went. Tim the Enchanter and Murder the Voodoo Sorcerer. I mean, that's a weekend.
Yeah.
Stuff blowing
Those
up,
guys.
Zombies being made everywhere. You kind of hope you make it to the
So-
end. That's a
so-
film that also needs to happen.
Yeah. Lugosi's was really proud of this movie. This is a year out from Dracula, so he was a hot property at this point.
Oh yeah.
And he let's say it, he fucking owns the screen when he's on.
Man, every
Yeah.
time he walks in, man, he is the center of the whole goddamn thing.
Yeah.
And it's not framing or anything. He's just got that charisma and he owns it.
I really like in these older films how when they want to present something frightening, they do things like close up of the eyes and those big bushy eyebrows and things like that, things that gave people a stir back in the day. That today it's just like,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's something else. I want to get into it when we talk to it a bit more technically, but I was going back and when I was watching this, and I was reminded of the time that I went back to rewatch Metropolis not that long ago, and M, which is another film we have to get to.
M's a masterpiece.
Yeah,
love
I've got the Criterion in my collection.
Mm.
But man, you can definitely tell the difference in how films were edited then as opposed to how things are done now. Because the cuts hold on for way longer in this film.
Well, I think that might be a photochemical reality of just what they were working with, because I really like that kind of dissolve that sort of sandwiched the two frames together and created. That was really creative. You can see it's very handmade. You can almost, if there were stitching involved, you would see it.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
It just really played well for me.
But I think also I just have been, I was having a conversation with somebody in an editing class not that long ago, because we had sat down and we'd rewatched Metropolis, which now, I mean, I love that film, but when you compare it editing wise to anything now, it feels kind of glacial. I mean, everything, the cuts are way longer and everything else, but a part of that was because we were, I think directors were still thinking of film as a theatrical performance put saved to celluloid.
Yeah, and therein lies the acting that we see in films like that. You know, it's just like it's so overblown and you know,
I don't look.
yeah.
I don't look at it as overacting. I look at it as a different style of acting. Hi, Kat.
I get.
Hello.
I think part of it is that actors back then, you're talking about people who were theater actors. Film acting had not really been that big of a deal, so they're still trying to reach the back of the goddamn venue with every motion they make.
And silent film is also pantomime based in a lot of ways. So a lot of them were holdovers from the silent film era.
Exactly. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to ask your opinion because you're an actor.
I am, and studying kind of the early age of film is a little bit of a hobby of mine. Like, I know we all have like our eras of film that we particularly love. I have a particular love for the very early stages of film, partially because it was such a new and exciting time because new technology, and like we're gonna try all of these new and interesting things. And then, of course, you've also got people jumping in there going, ooh, new technology, newfangledness. How can I make a buck off of this? But then there were plenty of people who were probably terrible to work with. Like, if I'm being totally honest, I think back then, and it was probably just studios full of like 2-bit hacks and mad geniuses. And the mad geniuses would, be like doing whatever they could to get this done. And I know that I don't know if somebody's already said it. If it has, cut me out. This was shot. White Zombie was shot in 11 days, but that actually wasn't super atypical. Generally speaking, they would just shoot linearly. It wasn't about getting the location and then or getting the various locations and shooting those chunks of scenes out of order. In the very beginning, they still did things pretty linearly during the production process. Well, and I could be lying.
This was shot on existing sets, I think, from Frankenstein stuff. So they
It
probably
Frankenstein and Dracula, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually want to go back and watch those two now so that I can look and see if I can recognize any of the sets.
Mm-hmm. It definitely has an epic quality to it because of that, because they're shooting. But then it also looks very cheap when we have the vulture.
The fucking vulture.
Every time that fucking vulture appeared, I was wondering who was being murdered in the background.
The first 4 times it started squawking, I was like, Jesus, Madeline, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was clearly.
Oh, it's the bird. It's that goddamn.
That was
bird.
clearly somebody. That was clearly somebody screaming at the top of their lungs.
But I gotta say, if you didn't have access to a stock sound of a vulture, that's a decent approximation.
John,
so there was
play a vulture in my next movie. He's gonna do it.
But there was that scene where the vulture was literally tied to the window.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, there's a string on that bird.
Yeah, and the guy goes, "That's terrible," or something like that. And I'm like, "What? The fact that they tied the bird to the window? See its breath. You can see its breath coming through its bill, steaming on the window there."
So pissed. Oh. Animals were probably harmed in the making of this film.
Yeah. Someday, human, I will get you. Yeah.
It's funny that you say that. I found myself talking back to this movie like quite a bit. I was thoroughly enjoying myself, like in a genuine way. Like, oh my gosh, this is so cool and it's so spooky and Bela is fucking iconic. Although I really love Beaumont too. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the fact that like he's just a dumb rich idiot.
He is that kind of guy that goes out
and he has a change of heart. He's like, how could I have done this? And there's that great line where he says, "Better hatred to see in her eyes than this cold emptiness." Something like that. It's like, too little, too late. But
yeah. The other line that I was sitting there and I was commenting on in chat and then prior And again, we're talking about, this is the era the film was made in, but the guy is sitting there after having discovered that her body is missing and all of this, and he's talking to the missionary, and the missionary's like, well, it was either a death cult who's trying to use their bones. I'm like, way to be sensitive there, dude. But the other one,
okay, Dan's favorite character, I think, was the Vulture.
Yeah.
I think my favorite is Dr. Brunner, because like just everything that man says is
I just cracked up with that.
He's so
every time he opened his mouth. The next part is that he's like, or maybe, they used this drug on her and they faked her death and now they're holding on to her. And the husband is going, oh no, lost among the natives, anything but that. And I'm like, and then the minister goes, excuse me, as if, and he's asking for a match. But my next thought was, and I filled it in because I literally said that, excuse me, that's racist as fuck, dude.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Your lady's still alive. Work with us here.
I think my favorite character actually was Silver, the butler.
Oh yeah. He knows he works for a piece of trash and he kind of owns it. Yeah.
I love when he tried to
go ahead.
I love when he tried to defend that he's like, Silver, and he picks up that tray and he's like,
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
And he's just like waiting there until he's just like waiting there until they attack him.
I could have been on 2 grams of hash and Valium and moved faster than that guy at that point.
I just feel like doing this for the rest of my life.
All right, you got it.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to make it fit the frame here, but yeah.
Sure. I mean, if you're gonna hang on, this is difficult. Wait.
Okay. There we go.
Oh, perfect. Nailed it.
Yes.
First take.
Bad
Cat, our new hand model.
It's even better because I've got the blur background on, and so it's got that like spooky crossfade thing happening that we see so much of in this movie. And there were a couple of points where I thought they were doing the crossfade of Legendre's eyes, or Legendre. I keep saying Legendre.
Murder.
Murder. His name is Murder.
Last name Legendre, first name Murder. It's a man named Murder. That may have been like the other name pitched for this movie beside White Zombie.
Does that mean that the Vulture is really a crow and it's a crow of murders? Never mind.
Get out.
That's worse. That's worse.
This terrible pun.
That's worse.
If that's not funny, you're not drunk enough.
Time to have a spotted cow while eating a spotted dick and listening to us on Spotify.
Yes. My favorite.
I was actually wondering, are there vultures in Haiti? I mean, I suppose there could be, but it's an island, and I don't know how much carry-on there is on an island like that.
Well, it depends.
What are you doing here, Vulture?
If you take Southwest, you get at least one. But if you take WA, you have to pay for it.
Oh man! So it's actually, Haiti looks a lot like a Midwest park. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
There was a line in there that I really loved. Kat and I had a lot of fun last night watching the movie, sort of
in the comments.
In the comments, so it was sort of like we were watching it together. And there was a point where Kat said, we may uncover
sins that even the devil would be ashamed of.
Yes.
Yay! I want to go to that party.
I'm like talking back at this movie like I'm a member of MST3K, but at the same time, I'm like genuinely enjoying myself so much. This is so spooky, and there are so many good lines in this. Like, I would say even out of that time, I still think the writing of this, at least the dialogue, there are some really, really excellent pieces in here. And maybe even just overall, like I like the writing in this.
I think it's a genuinely well written movie, and it's visually very interesting. It's got I think I mentioned it to you and also to Dave. It's got an impressionist kind of vibe.
Yeah.
M had come out a year earlier. I wonder if the director had seen that, because just some of his framing seems
And
Oh
also,
yeah,
a
and
lot
also
of
his
thought.
lighting
the
is
framing,
his
the
lighting is like
framing
that.
through the cross cutout
Mhm.
in the stone there, first with murder and then with Madeline, very very much like German impressionist film.
I thought it was cool when dude gets drunk and he starts seeing Madeline in the shadows.
Yes.
Stuff like
Yes.
that.
So
Just like-
sad.
And then he like reached out to hug her and she disappeared. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yep, you took the words right out of me.
Sorry.
Neil.
Well,
Um,
go ahead.
Well, I was trying to say earlier that when Dave was saying that he was talking back to the film, and specifically during that one scene where the only possible two options were given for her body, and I was just sitting there going, really? Those are the only two possibilities? Is a death cult digging her up for her bones, or the other thing? One or the other, you know.
No, she just said, "I'm tired of you fuckers. I'm out."
You know what my favorite shot of the movie is when the group is moving her coffin along, and it's a top down shot on just
Yes.
and you're
That is
looking
a
at
fucking nice coffin, by the way.
Yeah.
oh yeah
At least on the outside, like with all the, I think it was like a fleur-de-lis pattern in, it was almost like it was like upholstered on the outside in like brocade.
Yep.
The inside was a little chintzy, but you know.
But to have done that with this budget on an 11-day schedule, to have these there must have been storyboarding.
Yeah, what was it? Like a 50 grand budget?
I think the budget is right on the back of the box here, which is unusual. So a nice thing about this edition, it's not like a Criterion edition or anything, but it is pretty well packaged.
Yeah, it is.
Did we ever find out who Carrie Roan is?
I believe Carrie Roan is a film archivist.
Okay, nice.
So this movie is listed as pillar boxed, which is a term I hadn't heard before, but it is actually a different term for window boxed, which is letterboxing on the top and bottom, but also on the sides to preserve the 1331 frame.
Yep.
So
Got your little bit of curtain there.
yeah, so that's how you're going to see it. Dave was mentioning the print doesn't look that fantastic at first.
At first, then it gets better, but especially in the dark shots at the beginning when they're going down the road at night, there was an awful lot, at least to the view that I had, a lot of like light pulsing and stuff that was going on that was just enough to be a little distracting. Then it got better.
Well, it's certainly not a Criterion level reference copy, but at the same time, it looks remarkably good for a movie that was shot independently it was distributed by United Artists, I think, and made on sets from other movies, but it was made independently. And I was mentioning that to John. You don't whoever made this probably didn't have the movie stored, in the best conditions the way they would be today. So the fact that it looks as good as it does is pretty impressive.
Film is one of those things that, like, just as a medium in general, is so often thought of as fixed, as static. But especially with older movies like this, where there has to be some restoration done, where there's a little bit of missing footage and just you can't fix that.
Missing frames too,
yeah, missing frames, or there's those light pulsations in the background that you can't really do a whole lot to correct. But so that kind of gives it this ephemeral quality that, and maybe that's why I love it so much, is because it sort of shifts it back to the ephemerality of things like live performance theater.
I think it's something that I found very thinking of older films and preservation and stuff like that, is that a lot of films were basically, nobody thought that these things would be around for a long time. So we've lost an awful lot of stuff from the silent age and the early spoken era. This story happened about 12 years ago and they're still archiving. They found a warehouse in New Zealand. Because basically what would happen is that you would show the prints of your films in the States, they would go to Europe, or maybe they would go to Asia. Long story short, they would almost always have their last runs in Australia and New Zealand. and they found hundreds, maybe even thousands of films,
Hmm.
and they're archiving them now. I'm psyched to see. I am so psyched to see what it is they found.
Oh
'Cause
God,
some of-
I hope I can make it the next decade or two so that I can see some of that come to fruition.
Please let it be King Kong arrives at Edo.
Yeah, I think part of the only real problem that you're going to have with this is that because of the way that film stock was back then, because it was literally cellulose, it is very flammable. So
Mhm.
scanning this stuff to do a possible reprint is something you've got to be really fucking careful about.
So I watched the first few minutes of 3 different versions. I watched the colorized version.
There's a colorized version. Interesting.
Yeah. And then I watched just a standard streaming version of the same thing, same time period of the film, and then this one. And I have to say that this version does definitely look the best of the 3.
Well, good on you, VCI Entertainment.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing more from them in regards to their Blu-ray conversions on films like this.
Yeah, because they did pick a pretty good transfer for this, even though I had some initial misgivings. Then I saw what they did with the rest of it, and I was like, that actually came together pretty well.
How did everybody feel about? So we talked a little bit about the split screen shots. There's some early glass paintings in here that look pretty wonderful.
Do you know like how that was accomplished? Is that just an overlay thing?
Oh yeah, matte painting and stuff like that
Yeah.
has been going on for probably as long as there's been film.
Well, so what is everybody's favorite part of the film?
My favorite part would probably, the vulture.
Yeah.
I was sitting there taking notes, and suddenly I hear this scream, and I'm like, did I mention I'm way too high for you to be screaming like that? Don't do that.
I liked every second that Bela was on screen. He was just crazy.
For me, I think my favorite scene / sequence is actually the ending, where
It's a really good climax and finale.
Yep, it's a great cyclical moment in there where everything just works out particularly well. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I know what's going to happen, but now I'm actually looking forward to it.
But
you've been really
even
wanting to
so,
see
like,
bad things happen.
Even so, like I assumed we're gonna have a happy ending. The young couple, the young lovers are gonna be reunited. But I was still a little nervous. I'm like, Neil's gonna go over the edge. Every other moment I was like, Neil's gonna go over the edge. Oh no, Beaumont's gonna go over the edge. Madeline's gonna go over the edge. Not necessarily in that order, but someone's going over the edge. Before we lost the antagonist. I love the lemmings moments of the zombie.
Yeah,
just like,
Yep.
well, he's knocked out, so there's nobody controlling them, so they're just doing the last thing they were told. Go in that direction.
Yeah. John, what was your favorite scene?
I had 2. I like the scene where he's introducing his zombies.
Yes.
Yeah. Giving us a little bit of background on
Right?
each one of his favorite zombies. Those are his
Got him monologuing.
pride, his joy, his song. They are his, he introduced each one of them very specifically. And then the second favorite,
John, what
Yeah.
if they should recover their souls?
well, then
That will never be.
then they would tear me apart,
It's a risk you take with this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then my second favorite scene was when the zombie fell into the machine.
Yes. Oh my God, that was.
Why don't
perfect.
I remember that?
That was the mill scene when the zombie
Mill
is just
scene.
like, even after I'm dead, they're making me work. Fuck this. He just goes right over. He
I'm
just-
done.
Fuck
Was-
this
Was
noise.
that first scene in the mill where Beaumont
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
to see murder?
Yeah.
Great
I'm
sound design in that scene too. Sorry. go ahead.
God, the noise of that sugarcane being crushed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sound was really, I mean, I don't know how much of the sound was done over again in post, but that was like smoking hot loud in the mix. I was really taken aback by it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess they can't use that sugar now.
Well, sure they can.
Well, as long as you put a little warning on it and only sell it in
repackage it.
America.
It'll be fine.
May contain zombies.
It's extra special high quality for
This
all
product
the people
made in
who live in obscene luxury on the island of Haiti.
Now with protein.
This product was made in a factory that may contain zombies.
Madeline had a Fay Ray quality to her, I thought.
True.
Yeah.
Also looks really, really good in underwear.
Madge Bellamy for not having a whole lot of lines in this. Like she has her part and she does that part well.
She played piano while being a zombie and didn't break character, so I say thumbs up there.
Did we ever find out does Madge actually play piano?
I don't know.
I want to know.
Oh,
because it sounded like that that music was being, it didn't sound like that was put in post. That sounded like it was part
production audio.
It could have been a player
production
piano.
audio.
It could have been a
It
player
could have
piano.
been. Actually, speaking of Madeline playing piano, I think that they're me, I'm really bad at choosing favorites, but I think that whole section kind of from the beginning of that until Murder says some wine.
I just want to say Murder Says is the best thing.
Beaumont should have responded, I do not drink wine.
But
her playing the piano and Beaumont like trying to make this work, and he's just like, no, what have I done? That to me, like, yes, it's still that high stylized form of early film acting, but at the same time it feels very genuine, and like I was moved. I
think
you have moved my heart, sir.
I think if you are used to watching films of this era, that it doesn't feel like overacting too much. I mean, it's just a flavor or a way of filming something that maybe we're not used to. But once you allow yourself to be immersed into it, maybe in 10 minutes into the movie, you don't even notice it anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think with pretty much any form of art or entertainment or artful entertainment or entertaining art is the willing suspension of disbelief isn't just something that like you either can do it or you can't do it. It's like empathy. It's a skill. You can practice it. You can get better at it. But there are some for whom it is a little bit easier.
We're not talking about The Room, Tommy Wiseau. Sorry.
Also, yes.
He is everywhere.
John, have you seen? You're the vampire guy. I have to assume that you've seen Dracula 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So what was it like?
2004.
Yeah. What was it like seeing Bela in a different role? I don't know how many. I've seen him in a few movies.
But and it, he's I think he kind of almost plays himself. So you could take out the names of the characters that he plays and just always put him as Bela Lugosi as himself.
And I'd still watch it.
He feels like he's playing Dracula again to me. He's got this Svengali thing going on where, he's
weird hand things,
hypnotizing you and everything. And by the way,
mesmer stare.
He was in a movie once called Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla. So he has kind of played himself directly. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have never heard of this.
It must be found.
It's pretty terrible.
I need it in my life though.
So what does everybody give the movie, I guess? So
press play.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Press play. I love that it was only a little over an hour. It was just the right length.
Yep.
And it surprised me with how much thought was put into it visually and the way it was structured.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie liked it enough to name his first band after it. So
yeah. And I also give it a press play. You just have to be aware that it's a product of its time. But as
Mhm.
an example of a really well put together horror film of its era, now you're talking. Yep.
Yeah, you're right
Cat?
though.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You're right though, Dave. You do have to watch it from the eye of I know that this is going to be
Offensive.
steeped in racism and
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, look, we're a bunch of dudes from California and Europe doing
Yeah.
a film about Haiti. I'm sure that we'll get everything properly right. No
Mm-hmm.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing will be changed to add the drama level. We're cool.
Well, even Wes Craven was trying to do a more balanced view of voodoo and Serpent and the Rainbow, and he failed, in a lot of ways.
Then you've got producers sitting around going, but yeah, we need more blood and zombies and shit.
Yeah. Well, the book that Serpent and the Rainbow is based on is not a horror novel. It's a nonfiction account of this drug.
I actually, and I don't know, I can't remember if John was at Parkside at the time or not, but I did actually see, I can't remember the guy's name who wrote the book.
Wade Davis.
Wade Davis came to Parkside
Oh,
and
wow.
gave a speech up there, and he told, the reality of what it was that he saw up there, and it was absolutely fascinating.
I don't think I saw that.
Okay, because he was definitely like, look, Serpent and the Rainbow is something other than what I wrote, but as a film, it's actually pretty cool. So check it out. Just be aware that it's not a depiction of what we have.
Press play.
Press play.
Press play. Press play.
We should give this.
That's all I have to say. Press play on this movie because
pray.
It is uncovered things that would make the devil ashamed. How dare you all?
Oh,
you should be ashamed of yourselves. God damn it!
I'm so ashamed. I've been so naughty. I've never been so proud in my life. Yeah.
Overall, the story itself, the writing, and the love that was being put into the production would still come through, and that's something that audiences can see. And as long as they're not explicitly coming in there with the "I'm going to tear this movie to shreds because I have nothing better to do with my life and I'm angry at everything," generally speaking, audiences want whatever is in front of them to succeed, whether it's a play, whether it's a movie, whether it's a live sporting event. You want to see whoever is in front of you succeed.